All right, I think we're live doing this. Get my comments up real quick. There we go. Wait. Okay. Yeah, Derek, it's a grid. Can you hear me, Derek? Let me make sure everybody can hear me. I haven't tried streaming something. Okay, good. You can hear me. Awesome. Volume is good. Okay. Well, I'm in my living room now. I'm not in the shop, so it should be less echo. Or maybe it'll be more echo. I don't know. Anyway, thought to get started we'd make something simple in here. So I'm going to turn on my browser so you can see what's going on the left-hand side of the screen. So this is kind of weird. I haven't done a live casting of my desktop before. So just kind of, playing it by ear. So basically what you're looking at, turn on origin. So the origin is this button up here, which will show you your axes. So your front, this is your front face. And you can hit this. If you're not familiar with navigating, there's a little home button in your top right corner, which will automatically put you into that isometric type view. You can also hit that corner right there. If you want to spin around, you can hit each corner, and it'll spin around from center on your view. And if you want to go back to home, which is the default setting, this is what you're looking at. There's also an orbit button down here, which I've highlighted. So you just click that, and you can rotate. I have my orbit locked on center. You can free orbit or constrained orbit. And we'll get more into that in a few minutes. Yeah, I know you can see me, Derek. So, and if you don't want to see me, I can turn that off. I just thought it would be interesting. Another thing that you should be aware of when using orbit is, see how my cursor is the little orbit, for lack of a better word, the little orbit symbol. And as I move my orbit symbol, I can move the whole center of where it's looking at. But even if I go down here, I'm still constrained, so it's still going to rotate on center. By center, I mean the origin axis point. So to get out of this orbit, I have to move my cursor out until it turns into the normal cursor with a little arrow pointing to it. And then I click that, and then I'm free to move around now. I can no longer orbit. Now I'm selecting. Does that make sense? I don't know how much you know about parametric modeling or CAD work or things like that, so I'm just kind of taking it very basic until you get a feel, or until I get a response from somebody saying, hey, it's too slow, or if you want me to slow down, I can take a step back and show you something else. So right now, so we know how we can just pick the front. We can click this piece right here. We can put a sketch on it. We can sketch any point by just clicking the sketch button. You can click create sketch, or the little rectangle, the spline, or the line. Yeah, sorry, Eric. This is going to be a little boring. It's just starting out. Because you have to know how to navigate before you can make anything. So, speaking of making something, let's just jump right into making a simple box. And then after that, if everybody's comfortable, we'll make a table with constraints. Yeah, it's dry. I'm sorry. This is really dry. But, it's good information. So I can create a sketch one of two ways. I can either create sketch and then select my plane, or I can select my plane and then create sketch. Derek, if you want more help with the navigation, let me know and I can go back over that. It might become more clear as we make something. So because one of the main differences, I shouldn't even say that, one of the differences in your mindset when drawing something in Fusion 360 versus a software package like SketchUp is SketchUp will basically have you start on this grid right here, or even this grid, depending on how you're looking at your SketchUp. They rarely want you to build from the center, which in drafting terms, when you're making a model, you want it to have a centered point. That's so when you put it into another model or when you rotate it, and you'll see it later in the video where we start mirroring, because you can mirror a table leg or an entire building with a mirror function. So just to be real straightforward and keep it simple, so we're going to stop sketch. So I still have it highlighted right here, but I can go and delete that. This is my timeline down here, and you'll see that populate as I build something. So we're going to select our plane right here, which is technically the top, which is really the floor, but this is the top view, so you're getting it from top down. So keeping that center point in mind, I don't want to just create a normal rectangle. I want to create a center rectangle. And I can dimension this one of two ways, or there's multiple ways to dimension this. I can simply pull, see the numbers are changing. The highlighted number, I'm free to type in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, you get the idea. So let's just make it a 2. I can tab, hit my tab button, and hit 2 again. So now I have a 2 by 2 square. I hit enter, which constrained it, or stopped that sketch. It created this line all the way around, so it has a solid line. So it created a 2 by 2 square on center. And now I can see that by looking here, and I can turn off origin anytime I want to. So you can just see what I've made. Okay. Comment along as if you need me to say something or provide more information, or if I'm going too slow, that's important too. So I just hit my E button on my keyboard. You can also extrude up here. This is what this button does. So if I has a letter in the parentheses, it means I can just shortcut. So I want to highlight this. I can do that one of two ways again. And this becomes more important if I have more crap on the screen. So I hit E. My extrude menu comes up on the right hand side. I hit this profile. See the number right here is highlighted in blue. So I can type a number and give that a dimension. This is your fit button. So you want to be able to zoom out or zoom in. So if we went way out and I wanted to fill the screen with that image or that profile. So it's important when you first make the first thing, it's only going to give you new body because it can't join to something, it can't cut, it can't intersect. You can new body or new component. We're just working with body right now. Don't worry about component yet. So now we have a 2 by 2 by 2 square. So this is great, right? So now we can orbit around and we can see that the square that we've created is centered on our grid. Also, it's flat on that plane. With Fusion 360, it's very powerful software. So with this square, now it's a 2 by 2 by 2, right? So we can just go back in here into our sketch. This is what makes it parametric. I can edit my sketch, double tap, double click the dimension, type in a new dimension, hit enter, a new dimension, hit enter, and now it's the 3 by 3. It's still 2 inches tall. So to make that taller, I would edit my feature to 3 inches. And now I still have a 3 by 3 by 3 cube, and that maintained center. Does that make sense? Looking for a little feedback from anybody watching. So I think that's apparent, and it might be going too slow, but I don't know what the level of familiarity everybody is. So with this box, we can do a lot of things. Like if you just want to sketch something out to see what it's going to look like. Awesome, Anthony. Thanks for the feedback. So now we just sketched this box, and we've extruded it, and now it's a solid. We know it's a solid because we've rotated it around, and also it's shaded differently than a line would be. So if we want to hollow this box out, we can modify and shell the top of the box. So we can change that to 1/4 of an inch. And you can also use metric if you want to, but I don't. So now shell makes the box, shell gives the box 1/4 inch sides all the way around, and it will also give it a 1/4 inch bottom. You can't see that in this view, but that brings up display settings. I'm not going to repeat that, Ben. So visual style, so I went down here to my menu on the bottom, display settings, visual style, shaded with hidden edges. So now we can see the inside of the box from all angles. So now we can see exactly what that shell command did. Is that apparent to everybody? So this is important if you're working with more complex parts for furniture, which is generally what people in this group are going to be doing. It's very straightforward. You don't need that. Just if you shell, I just wanted to show you what it did. You can also change your display settings. Your camera, right now it's in perspective. It can be orthographic, which for some things it's valuable. I generally prefer not to be that way. So I generally prefer perspective. So you can do perspective with ortho faces, which gives you a different perspective or different point of view. And now just plain perspective now. So if we zoom out, again we can rotate around. We can see our box. So now I want to name the box. See if I highlight this. If I highlight this, body lights up on the left hand side, right? If I touch any of these with the mouse, if I mouse over, or if I mouse over body 1, it lights up. So let's just call this box 1. Okay? So I know what I'm working with. This becomes more important if I have different components or different bodies. Now appearance, I can change the appearance of this box. I hit the letter A, and my appearance tab hops up. I can move this independently, and I can still rotate around without affecting my mirror, without affecting my appearance box. So right now, all I want to do, because we're wood people, I want to give it a wood look. So we'll just pick something, bamboo. For some reason, it looks pretty good on the program. So I just take bamboo, I drag it over, and drop it. Up here, you can see it applies to bodies and components. If I wanted to do a face, I would do a different material. You can see how I just changed that one face. That's pretty interesting, or that might be valuable if, so I want to remove that cherry face. Okay. I think that makes sense. That's important if I want to have like a cabinet where the outside is one color and the inside is another color, and I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. So if I had a cabinet, so I have my faces selected. Now I want to apply white to the inside of the cabinet, or I can get rid of that. I can bring it back just by hitting A. You can get rid of a menu by hitting escape. So I want to go back to bodies. I want to make sure this whole thing stays one color. So you can just change anything you want. So now if I can drag it up here. Now faces, I can put a red one over here and a white one in there. Just so you get the idea of how to manipulate different appearances. So that's kind of it with the basic structure of what we're going to do, because we're going to get into the other commands when we build the table. And I'll briefly walk you through those. You can fillet, which is a round over. You can chamfer, which is the same. So I just pick my faces here, and I can put 1/8 of an inch, 0.125 if I wanted to. And now it puts that chamfer on the selected edges. Now my history, this is my sketch, my extrude, my shell, and my chamfer. Does that make sense? Now I can roll back. Let's say I don't like that chamfer, but I don't necessarily want to delete it. I just want to see what it looks like without it. So I can roll back just this bar. I can pull it back over here now. Now I can see that chamfer. I can even roll back before I put the shell. Something that might be of interest, when I go to visual style, I want to see hidden edges now. That's important because if I wanted to put a round over on the inside edges, I don't have to rotate the box. I can just select them through the face of it, and now you can see they're rounded off inside. That might be interesting or important to do depending on what you're working with. So I'm going to go back to visual style and just shaded, and we can see what that looks like. You can see that there's a difference inside the box now. Okay. Not really seeing much in the way of comments, so I think everybody is asleep, which is expected. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this completely. So I want to start a new file probably. So start a new file. All right, thumbs up. Everybody's awake. or at least one person's awake. So now we're going to make a table, kind of like the one you saw if you were here before this started. There's a table on the little preview menu for YouTube. And it'll be there after this is done too, or either I'll replace it with this one. So kind of we want to turn on our origin to see what we're looking with. And this is going to get pretty fast. So you keep up, and if you have questions, let me know. It's not going to get fast because of time. It's just there's a lot going on in a short period of time that you may not be used to if you're used to using SketchUp. If you've used Inventor or SolidWorks, programs like that, you're gonna be able to keep up without any question. So now I want to make an offset plane. I want to do this for a number of reasons. I want to construct an offset plane because I want to basically frame out in exactly how tall my table is going to be. So now we can actually go in here and talk about parameters. So I hit the little sum button. If my geometry is correct, that's what that means. So I can create another parameter, user parameters. I can create table. Well, let's just do top. You can't put any spaces in this word. So most of the time, 99% of the time, I just put a capital right here to delineate what I'm doing. You can put a little underscore, but that doesn't affect me. So top thickness, I want to be 1.5 inches. So okay. So now I want my table height. I want my table height to be 34 inches. And these are just numbers I'm throwing out. These might not be the perfect real world table height numbers. Probably isn't. For this, it really doesn't matter. So for this, I can actually do table height. I can do 34 inches. I can go in here and create a formula. So 34 minus top thickness. So that's one way to do it. And I can frame out my table that way. Or I can just leave it as 34 inches and just work down from my model. So when I create my construction plane, first I have to pick one of these planes as the kind of anchor point or where I'm coming from. So I hit this plane and it's asking me in this box, okay, how far away from this origin do you want that construction plane to be? Well, I want that to be table height. That way, if anything changes, and right here it verifies table height. So that way, if I decide I want my table to be 15 inches or 70 inches, whatever, just throwing out numbers, it's parameter driven. That's what means parametric modeling. So now, where did our construction plane go? Well, it's up here now. So it's kind of far away. I'm zooming out on my little computer. So you can see that little itty bitty guy right there. That's my construction plane. So I can turn off my origin if I want to save myself the hassle of remembering. So I'm going to do a sketch on that plane. Again, we're working with a parametric system, so we want to keep everything on center. And that has to do with, there's a big word, it's design intent. And basically, I want the computer to do what I want it to do. So I want my table to be 32 inches wide, and I want the table to be 60 inches long. Maybe 72 will look better. There you go. So that's a proper size top for a family of 6 people. Okay, I'm moving around my mouse now. So let's just go out of there. Let's set a parameter for that. So I can do top width, and I can make that 72. I can do top length. Oh, width should have been 32. So let's just do this 72. Width. I can change these at any time. So make that 32. You might want it to be 34, whatever. We can change it later. So now I hit OK. I verify this is what I want to do. I kind of just always revisit this. So my thickness is 1.5, table height is 34, my width is 32, my top length is 72. These are parameters. So now I go back in here. On center rectangle, I choose the center to start off, because I don't have to choose the center. For my center rectangle, I can choose here, and it's centered on where I start. But we're centering on this point. If you get into different models, you might want to change that. So now I can go table or top, and it gives me a list of things to choose from. And I can mouse over. So this will be my top width. Okay? So don't mouse after you figure that out. And now I can dimension. See, this is another way to dimension. After I've done that, and it's a function. That's what the fx means. So it's catching that formula. So now I can do this. Top length. Enter. So now that's 72 by 32. It automatically reminds me. And if we go into our parameters, we can see 72 for length, 32 for top width. Now I can stop the sketch. Now we can still see that we've been drawing on our construction plane because we're elevated from the bottom. If you recall, the square that we built was right on the bottom. So now I can select this to extrude, and I want to go down. So I want to go minus top thickness. So it's very simple. If I want to go up, it's plus or nothing. If I want to go down, it's minus. And because I wanted to frame the top of this table to the bottom of the floor, picture this grid as the bottom of a floor. Or the top of the floor, depending on how you're looking at it. Floor level. So between here and floor level is table height. Now I want to draw some legs. So I just orbit over. Get out of orbit. I can sketch the bottom of the table. So now I'm on the bottom of this table now. And I kind of like it. I don't know. I'm kind of funny. I like this to read correctly. I don't want it to be upside down. So we'll just zoom into this corner over here. And we'll make a very rudimentary table leg. So we'll just do it there. So I'm going to go back into parameters now and just call something leg. Because I'm going to use the same dimension for the width and the distance of the leg. So how about a 2.5 inch leg? And then we'll do that when we get there. So now I can go here and dimension this part. Leg. Enter, enter. I can go to leg. Enter, enter. So enter chooses it, and then enter closes it. That's why you have to hit enter twice. So now I want to figure out what I want this to be. So that's 2 inches right now. And that's 3 inches right now. But we can make that a parameter if we wanted to. We might not want to, but I think we do, because if we change the distance, if we change the dimensions of the tabletop, that's going to not carry that over. So we'll just call this leg offset. No. Offset's fine. It doesn't matter what you call it. You can call it banana, and it really doesn't care. So we'll make that 3. Okay, so now we'll just go here, leg offset. And make sure you don't choose leg, just leg offset. And you can see that right here. It's 3 inches and 3 inches from the corner to the leg, from the corner or the edge to the leg. So now we can stop. And now what we want to do is bring our home button. And we've actually drawn that on the bottom, but it's projecting. See this darker? We want to extrude this leg. And we want that to be, I don't know what happened. So extrude this leg. Table height minus top thickness. Awesome. Glad that my words are making sense. So my table height is the height from the top of the table to the floor. So now from the bottom of the table to the floor will be table height minus top thickness. Now, you have to keep this in mind. Right now it wants to join. See, it says join operation. I can join, I can cut, intersect, or new body, or new component. I want to make a new body. Hit OK. Now, our table has one leg, which in and of itself is pretty cool. So we can see that that's on the ground level. We can see that that's not protruding up. We can see that our offsets are correct. So I'm going to go into here. I want to make this top. Make this leg 1, because we're going to need more legs. How do we get more legs? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. We can go around and physically draw them on 4 times or 3 more times like we did the first one. Or we can do a command called mirror, which I really like. So we're going to turn on origin, which brings up the origin planes. So you can see there's one in the middle. That way, because we've drawn our, we've drawn our shape or our tabletop from the center. So now I have a built-in mirror from the center of each angle. So I have an angle here, or a plane here, a plane there, and I have a plane on the floor. So now for mirror, I go down here to create mirror. And it's asking me pattern type, faces, bodies, features, components. I want to select a body because that's what our leg is. So now it selects that whole leg. Now it's asking me, okay, where do you want me to mirror? This is the center plane. So I say okay. Now we have two legs. And they're perfect to one another. It's perfectly mirrored, mainly because we drew the center rectangle. Great, now we have two legs. Well, we can get two more. This time it's even easier. Now we can mirror bodies as already selected. I'm going to select these two. I have to select mirror plane. I might be able to hit enter and get it there, but I'm just going to hit select with my mouse. Hit this plane right here because that's the center of my table. Now I have two more legs. Hit OK. Done. Does that make sense? That will not work if your model isn't centered on the page. So now we have a very rudimentary table. But we can make this look a little bit better. Probably give it an apron. So let's just go up here to parameters. We kind of know what we're dealing with. So we need an apron. It needs to have a thickness, right? Let's just make that 3/4. So 0.75. And we need to have an apron length. Let's just make that 4 inches. And we need an offset or a reveal. Let's just call it an offset because we can use that in more than one place. Offset 1/4 of an inch. Now we have our parameters for, we can use these anywhere we want. Keep in mind, the name you give it, it doesn't matter. You can call this banana. The program doesn't care. But just so you remember what it is, it's an offset or a reveal. So now I want to sketch a rectangle on the bottom of my table. Turn off origin because that's bugging me. So now you can see this is already highlighted. The leg is already projected. So I'm just going to draw a very simple shape there. I'm going to draw another shape here, just a rectangle. And I don't want it to have that little triangle on it. Okay. Does that make sense? So now I want to dimension these. So we're going to call this apron thickness. Now we can dimension off the edge of the leg to the front of the apron, offset. See how that just moves it into place? Awesome. So now we do the same thing. Grab this apron thickness. We grab the top of the leg to the top of the apron. Now it's overdriven. This happens from time to time because I accidentally anchored on a line. So if you get this, it's kind of, when you first start getting them, it's gonna irritate you. So you just hit cancel because I don't want that dimension. I hit escape. I kind of click off the plane so I can see what I'm doing. And I know I have to delete this parameter. So I delete that. These little shapes right here, you can see what they do. There's a list of constraints over here. Now it's telling me not to do it again. See, they are frustrating. There it is. So let's highlight that constraint and get rid of it. Can I do it now? Yes. So you just kind of hunt around. See, it took me a couple tries. But that triangle was a certain type of constraint, which we're not going to get into at this point, that was telling it to do a certain thing. And we can't overwrite it. So let's call that offset now that we're back in place. And now we can stop our sketch. Now, there's two ways to do this. There's a lot of ways to do everything in here. This is one way to do it, and by no means is my way the right way. So we hit E to extrude, and we grab our sketch, our apron, and we just call that apron length. Join? No. We want to make that a new body. So now, from this point of view, it looks like we have a complete table. But if you notice over here, we're missing our aprons on two sides. Would anybody like to guess how we're going to solve that? See, you can see our structure over here. And we're not worried about any joinery at this point. This is just very easy. You can put the table against the wall or in the corner, or as Kevin stated, we're going to mirror. So now we can see our apron has a proper offset or reveal to the leg. So everything worked there. We are going to mirror. So to do this, I'm going to turn off the top. These little light bulbs, you can turn off anything you want. You can turn off the leg. You can turn off the other leg. The other leg. Get the idea, right? You can turn off anything you want, or you can turn them all off. I like to turn off sketches so I don't grab the wrong thing. So I'll just turn off the top because it's easier to grab. So create, mirror. I have to pick my pattern type, which is bodies. I pick my objects with my mouse. So I select this guy. Mirror plane automatically hops up. So I select this one. My part mirrors to the other side. I have to go do that again. Create, mirror. Bodies, select this guy, and now it's not populating. I don't know why it does it sometimes and sometimes it doesn't, but that's okay. I select my mirror plane. I just hit OK. Now we can inspect our table. We have, zoom in a little bit, make sure we don't have any gaps in our top, and we don't. So right at this point, it's easier to see how we can change our constraints, our parameters. So I go into my parameter list, and let's change our apron length from 4 inches, something dramatic, 10 inches. All 4 of them move. See how that worked? Well, 10 inches looks like crap, so We're going to put them back to 4 just to show you how to do it. Battery. So now you can make your legs different also. So what if we want 3-inch legs now? If you notice, everything moved with it. I'll do that again kind of dramatically. Put it to 1 inch. These didn't move, which I don't know why. So we'll go back to 2.5. You can play with that. There's probably something in the where I deleted one of those constraints where it didn't like it. Oh, because I don't have. I can add another parameter for my apron length to be like table length minus offset minus leg. You get the idea. You can parameter everything on this thing. So we basically look around. We have our offset. We have what looks like a table base. Over here, turn back on the top. Go back to our home button. And we can see a nice view of the table we've created. Now I'm going to turn off the browser so we can just kind of see. So I can move it to the side so you can see better. Now I'm going to hit the letter A on my keyboard. I'm going to go down to, I hit the letter A for appearance. And let's make this table out of walnut. So I'm going to apply this to everything I see. Okay. Close out our appearance menu. And you can see we have a table that's made out of walnut. It's very plain looking. It's actually, if you're paying attention to what's going on, you'll see that the grain is not facing the right way on the top. You probably not build a top like that. Also, you can see on the edges, on the apron, the grain is going vertically on the aprons, and the grain is going vertically on the legs, which we want. So in order for our rendering to look more realistic, we have to think about things like grain direction. So now let's go back into appearance. And we can highlight, we kind of mouse over. If I say highlight or mouse over, it means the same thing. Highlight walnut, right click it. You can duplicate. So now I have a new one. I can edit that one because I don't want to edit all of it because, how's it going, Jimmy? Glad you're here, bud. So now we're talking about our appearance section in Fusion 360. We've just duplicated and edited the walnut appearance in Fusion 360. And in order to rotate, I physically have to rotate this material. So if you think about this with boards that you would use to make the tabletop, to get the grain running this direction, you'd have to rotate the board. So I have to do the same thing. I have to rotate my selection here. So I'll hit done, let that update itself, and there it gives me a different one. This lets me know that it's been updated. So now my boards are running in a better manner. I'm not going to say correct or incorrect because I'm sure somebody will scream. So I move those over. You can see all my aprons from here. I accidentally did a leg, so I'll do that back. Okay. Now let's close out our appearance menu. We can rotate around and see if everything got selected. Let's go here and look. Yeah, it looks good. Our legs are good. The leg is good. The apron's good. So this looks like a table that I would make at this point. So now, how else can we dress this up for if we're going to make this into a rendering? Because we want to end up rendering this. We might not have enough time, but we're going to render this at some point. So I turn back on my browser because I need to reach my origin. I want to do a sketch on the floor. Let's turn off bodies. So again, I'm going to do a center sketch or center rectangle. And let's just do 200 inches, tab 200 inches. Okay, stop sketch. Fit. Oh, I turned off sketches. You have to remember. So this light bulb right here turns back on my sketches. So now I can see my table is on my, this is going to be the floor. So I have to give this a thickness if I want to apply an appearance to it. I don't want to give it much thickness, so I'll just give it, 1,000th, and I'll call that a new body. I can even make it minus, so it doesn't affect our table. So now we have a body. Now I can apply an appearance to that. Let's just make this a bamboo floor because it's bright. Or you can do oak floor, which probably more people have than bamboo floor. Now we close out our menu right here, and let's turn off our origin and sketches. So now we have something that looks rather decent in a fairly short amount of time. We can make it better. So I go to top, I hit fit, and if that doesn't bring it out enough, I can zoom out. I want to sketch on the floor. There's more than one way to do this. So 200 by 2. By 2. Stop sketch. Turn on sketches. Extrude. This guy. And this guy. And let's make that 100 inches. It's going to want to join, so we're just going to make that a new body. Okay. Go back to our parametric view or isometric view. We can paint the walls. So go back into A. Scroll down. I want paint. So I want probably a white paint just so it shows up in the model better. So we painted our walls. And we can also, see, I want to make sure so we can turn these off now. We can keep the floor. We can make this a little bit better. We can chamfer the top. We can chamfer the underside of the table. So let's turn off the floor. Let's turn off everything except for the top. So now we only have the top available. So we don't have to worry about accidentally selecting other things. So I want to chamfer the bottom edge. So for me, it's easier if I just go in here and look at hidden edges. Modify, chamfer, edge right here, edge there. These are all my bottom edges. So we'll just pick something, 1/4 of an inch, chamfer. We can see what that looks like very quickly. Doesn't really look like much. Let's change our visual style so we can see better. So this is really light chamfer all the way around. We can go back in there and modify it if we want to. Just right click in your history or your timeline, edit feature. So instead of 1/4 of an inch, you can hit 0.5. So 1/2 inch, you can see it in real time. It developed. 3/4 of an inch. I like the 1/2 inch probably better. And now we can chamfer the top of the top because you want that slightly chamfered. You can do a round over. Let's do a fillet. So pick all these edges and give it something very small. That looks fine. So it's just breaking those corners. And you can even select, you can select this line, you can select this line, this line, this line, and you can continue to refine that as much as you want to. Now, we can turn on the rest of our table and room. Hit fit. We can rotate, see what we've done. So we have a little room here for our table. So now we can go in here. We have to save this. So just call it demo table. By default, Fusion 360 wants to start rendering as soon as I save something. So right here it says rendering in progress. I don't really want it to do that. So as soon as it starts, I'm going to tell it to stop. Okay, I want to do it myself. So I want to make sure whatever is in this frame is what it's going to render. So you see our edges right here, not ideal. So we can go back out here to model. Edit our sketch. See, I didn't draw that from the corner. So we'll just modify this one. Modify this sketch. So right click, edit sketch. We'll change that distance. Stop our sketch. You see that's now it's closed that corner. Let's save it again. So now we go back to render. Now I'm happy with how that looks. Happier with how that looks. So I saved again, so it's telling me it wants to render. So we'll just do it ourselves. Do a local render, because you can cloud render or local, final or standard. Let's do standard. Render. So local rendering has started. Yeah, this is, it does seem like that, Jimmy, because it's all basic CAD stuff. And CAD is different than, so I don't want all these other ones on there. So now you can click this down here and it'll bring up a menu. It's not going to take 9 minutes. Yeah, the cam portion of this is not something I've gotten into yet. And this is on a Mac. Kevin asked, when I applied the texture, the board texture to the top, did it do the full thickness of the top, or do I still need to do the underside? It did the full thickness of the top because I selected body. If I had selected face, it would have only done that one face, so the top of the top. But because I did selected body, it basically wrapped that texture around that whole shape. So you can go in there and say you're applying an edge to something, you can just, like for whatever reason, you wanted to apply a red edge to a black shelf. You can just click face and make that edge a certain color. So now we're just waiting kind of for this to wrap up, and that'll be the show. You can see it rendering in the bottom. So this is what's rendering. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. And if there's questions, no, we didn't taper these legs. We can. It takes more time. This will be available after it's live, Jimmy, if you want to go back and check it out. And if you have any questions, let me know. See these images right here? These four are the cloud rendered images, which they're faster, generally speaking, but you don't have as much control over what you're rendering because it just kind of grabs a viewpoint. Just kind of checking my battery life. Fusion 360 is a free software package. The caveat is, I believe it's $100,000. So if your business is making less than $100,000, you have a free license. Yeah, anything over 100,000, I don't know what they charge you if you actually had to buy it. So it's telling me the rendering time is needing a few more seconds. I think so, Ben. I think it's going to look like a decent little table. We made a little room for it to go in, which, we could have spent more time. So there's the finished rendering. Here it goes. So here's our finished rendering. And you can, from here, you can re-render, you can save it, or you can delete it. Or you can scroll through and look at what exactly, David. So this is what the program thought I wanted it to capture. And generally speaking, it's not this bad. This rendering looks worse because we created a room. So here's our finished rendering in the program. So now we can save that, click that guy, and save it wherever you want. I'm not going to right now. Well, I might as well. So we'll just save it in a file. And maybe I'll make that the new thumbnail for this video. So we'll close out the rendering. If there's any changes we wanted to make, we can go back into model. And with our parameters, we can change our top thickness, table height, offset, apron, any parameters we have. We can go back in here and change material. So back from what Kevin was saying or asking is, if we look at the underside of this, there we go. If we look at the underside of the table, we'll see it has that face. See, I just did the face for that different one, so it kept that one. If I did body, the top would look like the bottom. You can go in there and make it anything you want. Just gonna move it over. Okay, well, I think that's it. We've been live for an hour and 10 minutes. Basically an introduction to Fusion 360, making a... First we made this little box right here with some face. See, this is what it will look like if you chose face for your color or your appearance. See, this is face. So the inside is different color, and this is body, and the top was different. So we started off and made this simple little box. We shelled the inside, we rounded over the bottom, we chamfered the top, we named it, then we went over here, made this table, gave it a room, we rendered it, and I think we're done for this live video. Thank you for everybody who's joined us. And if you have any questions, post them after this goes post live. There must be a better word for that. Right now we're just calling it post live. So after this goes live on YouTube, post your questions down there in the comments. You can send me a message and let me know what you want to see next time. We can do more videos of tables. We can do anything you want. So if you have any questions, anything specific, just let me know. We'll cover it next time. Thank you for joining, and goodbye.